The ending is out, and so does the jury. Oshinoko just ended, and let's talk about it. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb Initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, this is a big moment for me at the very least, because the whole reason that I started this season was because I was so infatuated with the series Oshinoko, and now a bit more than 1 year after I did my, let's say, impressions video, it just ended. I really thought that it wouldn't last more than 1 year, more, let's say, 2 years if it was really stretched. And turns out I was right on a huge guess. Anyways, the thing is, before I start with everything I want to talk about, because this is a really hard and nuanced manga to kind of try to explain and really get into things, start with the first thing. Spoiler alert, I will assume that if you are here, you have at the very least read through most of it, if not finished it, and have your own opinion about it. The other thing is, I may have a distant opinion from the general public. I will talk more about this later, but the thing is, I think the ending is okay. But anyways, the whole thing is, spoiler alert, if you haven't really read this, finish it. It's out now. The last chapter came out last Friday, so you can actually do it. It has already been translated officially to English, so you have the ways to do it. Finish the whole manga before listening to this. And to the guys that are just watching the anime, if you want to get spoiled, because there is a third season coming, most likely, I think, I would advise not to if you want to watch the anime. But again, I can't really hold my thoughts on it really well. So again, spoiler alert, if you don't want to get spoiled, please get out, finish the manga, and then come back. That being said, now that I may or may not have got everyone out of here, let's get to the stats, because just to keep this in a more normal review. So let's go. Oshinoko is written by Akasaka Aka, the same writer that did Kaguya-sama Loves War, and I don't know if this is the right name, but I think the other project that he has done and finished was Renai Love. I may be wrong on that, don't quote me on that. Oshinoko is originally a manga. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited, and at the very least a bit hesitant in giving this review, to doing this review. So the whole thing kind of, I'm getting a bit of excited, let's say. So again, Oshinoko is originally a manga written by Akasaka Aka, aka the same author that did Kaguya-sama Loves War, illustrated by Yokoyari Mango. I think that if someone had any doubts about her talent, I beg to differ, because this manga proves that, oh my god, she's so talented. The whole thing, and I will talk a bit more about this later. Published by Shueisha in the magazine Weekly Young Jump. It is basically the darling of Shueisha nowadays, really. It started the run on April 2020 and ended on November 14th, 2024. It has 15 volumes, 166 chapters, and I think some of the editions came with a 24 extra chapter. I don't know if we'll get widely published, but let's hope. The series also has an anime. The first season was done by the studio Doga Kobo. It ran from April to June of 2023. A second season came out in July to October of 2024, and a third season was announced after the airing of the episode 13 of the second season. So again, also, right, there's a lot of things here. We had the television drama that was on November 2024. eight episodes, and apparently there's a live action movie to come out. It says here that it will be released on December 2024, but I don't know right now because we are not in December as of yet. Now, let's get some things like really well established. This is not even close on theming to Kaguya-sama. The whole thing is really tragic. This whole story is really tragic. Another thing, before I even start with everything, let's get a bit of more of outside of the story context for it, right? So this started a bit before Kaguya-sama was finishing up, and a bit before really everything was finished up with Kaguya-sama overall. I think the anime at that point wasn't even finished when this started, and one of the things is this has a really iconic, if you don't know about it, let's just get this band-aid off. This anime, the first season of the anime, has what I would call a blast run, because I mean, if you know me, you get what I'm coming to say. But the thing is, right, this is a blast anime because the opening was done by Yoasobi, and let's just say Yoasobi has a track record of giving great anime the blessing of the opening. So that's basically my kind of mysticism around this whole thing. But the whole thing starts with the opening. Aidoru was done by Yoasobi. Really great song, really catchy, and it symbolizes, it's especially made for this series. It symbolizes the whole theming of not only the first season, but the whole series itself. It tells basically the story, the intentions of Ai, and the whole thing about our main characters, and I'll get to that, but easy to say, it's blessed. The first ending, also Mephisto by Queen Bee, is also really, really touching and especially made for this series. I would just want to talk to you about this, especially to say that the anime was so successful at this point and really, really just destroyed everything on its path, at the very least the first season. The second season we can debate on, but the first season was so successful in all fronts that Shueisha, or should I say Kadokawa, the group that owns Shueisha, bought up the studio to then make the following seasons. And after the last episode of the first season aired, they announced the second one, and now the same thing with the second season. When it ended, the third season was announced. The thing is, right, and this is a prelude to what I'm about to talk about, the whole story and stuff, I don't think the third season will do so well, because if people get spoiled on the ending, I don't think general publics will like this very much. And with that said, let's get to talking about the story. So the whole thing kind of starts, and this is a really hard thing because Oshinoko, I think it works in a whole different level to other mangas, because it is at first tragedy and a drama, let's say, and from that point on it lays out a whole lot of things, because the first chapter of the manga talks about our, let's say, three main characters and things that happen to them. And again, I am assuming that you finished it, but just for the guys who stuck around to actually listen to a review and choose whether or not they want to embark on this journey. The first chapter talks about our three main characters. Goro, a doctor on the countryside of Japan. I will not remember the name of the prefecture, sorry. Sarina, one of his patients that we would find out later in the same chapter that she has undetermined, unnamed, let's say, condition, and it is terminal. And then we get to see that the both of them, they interact a lot because he's the main doctor at the hospital and he's the one responsible for Sarina's care and so on and so forth. And one of the things that they create the connection on is liking idols, and so the whole thing kind of shows off this love for idols that they both have, and already hints at the fact that if Sarina could get out of the hospital, grow up and like live a normal life, because at this point she has lived most of her life locked in the hospital room without any contact with her parents, because her parents more or less basically threw her into the hospital to just forget about it. Easy to say, right? The whole thing kind of, they build a bit of a relationship around this whole thing between he being the responsible for her and her kind of nurturing this sentiment towards him. And they love idols. Both of them love idols way too much, and both of them are fans of one group called Bikomachi that is headed by Hoshino Ai. That is then our third main character, because later this, let's say the same week that Sarina unfortunately passes away, Ai appears out of nowhere and she's apparently pregnant. Nobody in the media knows about it, and she's carrying twins. And so we have this quick interlude about the time she passes between entering the hospital and going really into labor, and how Goro helps her with everything that she needs. In a few minutes, they, at the very least, they don't give really a good time mark for this, but a few time before she actually gives birth, Goro is attacked by one crazed fan and is beaten to death in the back of the hospital, basically. Nobody ever finds out about his going missing, so the whole thing ends with this really bittersweet note, but it is more or less, let's say, it's really on the nose, but at the same time, the scene is pretty strong. That they basically say that both Goro and Sarina have been reborn as Ai's children. So the whole thing kind of works out that way. So both of them passed away in different times, but both of them are reincarnated into Ai's children. And so the story begins as both of them live with Ai for a certain time, and now it comes the strongest, most touching thing, a thing that really gives me the chills to this day. And I think that no matter if you watched the anime or read the manga, this is forever a kind of scar that you carry. But the scene where, after some years of them living together, the guy who killed Goro originally comes to Ai and ends her as well. And that one scene, both in the manga and the anime, have, I think, the same kind of emotional weight, because oh my god, that scene's so strong, man. That scene is so strong. And to justify how strong that scene is, it is the one happening in the story that actually marks the beginning of Oshinoko. It is from that point forward when we see how both Aqua and Ruby are exposed to that image of their mother passing. It's the one moment that starts it all. And from that point forward, the story goes. And now I'll be just talking about the people who actually finished. And so this is really scatterbrained. I don't have any kind of script here, but let's get through this together, okay? So first things first. Let's just say that this story from the get-go, it is really, really, really strong on the feelings. But at the same time, although it is a self-important story, really, if you want to call it that, it's really edgy. I think that due to influences from, I think, Kaguya-sama in some ways. And this is a thing, right? So I started this review saying that this is themically not really close to Kaguya-sama, but at the same time, the style of writing, it feels kind of the same. You can really like trace some of the mannerisms that Akasaka has with his kind of way to tell a story, and the way that he implements these little gags and comedic reliefs on certain scenes. It feels, for the most part, at the beginning, it feels okay, because at the beginning we don't actually have much of idea of how things are, right? So the whole thing kind of doesn't really weigh on the story much, but as time goes on and this continues to happen, I think it detracts from some scenes, and this is a thing that repeats a lot. I personally don't I don't appreciate the comedic relief much when you're trying to actually do something really, really strong on the feelings, because it cracks a bit of the emotional weight that you have or the stakes that you're putting on, and generally that really gets me. And this may be a pet peeve of mine, but at the same time, you can't have like a self-important story that has this amount of heavy themes and stuff, and at the same time trying to mellow it out with comedic reliefs. I think that for the most part, some parts are okay to do it, but not most, but some of the times, it shouldn't be there. That's one criticism that I have, but that may be a nitpick of mine. The thing that I really want to talk about is the fact that at the very least, the whole thing at the beginning is really well rounded. We see both sides, because, and to those who didn't really watch or read this and are still choosing to, at the beginning, both Aqua or Hoshino Aquamarine, or just Aqua, the one that was Goro in the last life, and Ruby, Hoshino Ruby, his twin sister, that was Sarina, they don't actually know that both of them reincarnated into each other. They don't actually have the knowledge that Sarina is Sarina and Goro is Goro, or better, that Ruby is Sarina and Aqua is Goro, because they have, let's say, their memories from the past life, and so they have still that emotional connection that they had, but at the same time, the whole thing kind of, they don't actually know about it, and it is one of the points that gets brought up a lot in the story, because at the same time that they don't know it, we, audience, know the real facts, and so some of the exchanges kind of get a different perspective on our side from theirs, and at the same time it becomes a point of contention at the later stages of the story. But the thing is, right, so at the beginning, when they don't know each other really, and the whole thing kind of, it starts really okay for like kind of a different school setting, and they are involved into the idol slash acting slash showbiz world. It is really okay, and the beginning of the story is really nice, really okay, really, let's say, really easy to read, really easy to absorb. It's again really easy, and as people get involved and our recurring characters get presented, the whole thing kind of starts to get a bit of more, let's say, complicated, but at the same time, at the beginning, we don't actually have a real, let's say, a real aim, a real endpoint of objectives and desires, because at this point, and this is a thing, right, Ruby at the very beginning of the story, after I dies, but doesn't really, the whole thing kind of don't really match up. Ruby doesn't actually have any development, and she doesn't actually really have anything to do with anything, while Aqua has been festering this revenge plot from the beginning, because he actually saw like the frame by frame of everything that happens, and that is something that actually we get to see his psychological situation and the whole struggle that he has with both his past and as Goro and as Aqua, because in both, let's say, both instances, he feels guilty about surviving, and at this point too, we have the separation between Aqua and Goro really well defined, because in a way we have the Aqua that knows I and the Goro from back then, and there's this whole thing, right? And they present this in a really well done way, because they develop him, Aqua, a lot, but at the same time it kind of feels really not great. In some instances, the whole story really starts to make a bit more sense after the play arc that is the second season of the anime, I think, because the play arc, the first season, right, it doesn't really get much done, the first part, because we have this setting up of a lot of characters, and the amount of characters that actually appear, they really don't help much to the, let's say, to the main plot, because while, right, so we have Akane with her struggle, which in all honesty, was something else, because oh my god, that whole arc is really messed up. And I mean, it is something that happens, right? So even to the point that I think at the time, all due respect to the actual people, but there was a case where I think someone was trying to actually sue Shueisha, either Shueisha or Akasakaka, because of his, let's say, reuse to an actual story that happened in real life. And I think the whole sue was dropped, but the thing is, right, the whole action was dropped, but I mean, it is something that happens, and I think that it brings out more of the surrealism that they bring to the story, and the whole thing kind of goes from there, right? So we have the introduction of Akane, we have the introduction of Kana, not in necessarily that order, but let's just get on to it. We get the introduction of Mencho, we have the introduction of all the side characters that really don't appear that much, and from then on, we get the introduction of the rest of the people of the studios, so mainly Miyako and Saito, and the whole thing kind of works out that way. The first, let's say, arc, it gets really well defined on that. It ends on the moment that Aqua gets involved with the play. The play is, I don't actually remember the story of the whole thing. I don't remember the name of the manga they were trying to reenact, but the thing is, the play is the first, let's say, actual story-driven act of Oshinoko, because it all gets a whole lot of things running. And the first point where the reason why they use the stars in their eyes comes out as a metaphor. So basically, just to explain. So it is really noticeable from the cover art of the manga that Aqua and Ruby have these stars on their eyes. And the stars, at the beginning, they don't make much sense. They kind of give a slight introduction, but they don't actually do much in the way of being a metaphor as themselves. And the play gives out this idea that this actually is a big metaphor. So the stars on their eyes are basically lies, and this is a theory on my part, right? From this point on, this is a theory, but my high level theory is that basically one star represents you're lying about your past. Both Aqua and Ruby have a past that they don't want to give out to anyone, because they can't really say that they are reincarnated from other people. And that's the first star. And the second star that comes up in the play arc is the star of the lying for intentions. This comes up more on Aqua, and later on, when I know they gave her the name Tsukuyomi, but for me it's the Dungeon Master from the D&D cartoon. And basically, right, so the stars, they represent lies, and lies on the past and lies on their future or their intentions, more or less. And this reflects back on I, because I is drip, and we have this drip feed really from the get-go about her, both her past and everything that happened with her until the point that she was ended. And the whole thing kind of makes sense for me at the release like this. So I lied from the beginning to the end. From the moment that she became an idol, she lied about her past, and from then on she lied to everyone, even to their kids. She couldn't really reveal every one of her colors to anyone. And this is a theme that comes up later, but it is to say that I think this theory is okay. Getting past that tangent, right? This review is a mess. God damn it, this review is going to be a mess. What I want to talk about, really. So let's jump past a whole lot of stuff and talk more about the last 40 chapters, more or less. So we have we start off really chill with the school arc, the reality show arc. till that point, Ruby doesn't do anything. After the whole thing with the reality show, they have the play arc. The play arc, we have Ruby becoming an idol with both Mencho and Kana. If you can't infer from how much I don't like to say her name, I don't like Kana as a character, but I give her a redeeming mark after the ending, and I will talk more about this later, but let's get on with it. So we have Ruby becoming an idol, and Ruby, the moment that the play arc ends, and I think the anime did a good job with it. I personally didn't actually watch it, but I have testimony from other people that both watched it and read the manga, so I can kind of comment on it. The thing is, after the play arc, Aqua's eyes become starred, both of them, and they become black, and the black color on the stars is another whole thing with the nature of the intention. Let's say he wants to kill someone by the end of the play arc, so the whole thing kind of goes from there. And the other thing is, after Tsukuyomi, let's say the Crow Girl, reveals herself to Ruby and actually shows Ruby that Goro was killed, she also seeks revenge for Goro. Now, more than she seeks revenge for Goro, that was her romantic interest. She also activates both of her stars, and the whole thing kind of goes on from there. Not long past that, they don't actually leave much room to Ruby fester in that revenge plot of hers, because she starts to overwork a bit herself, but at the same time she doesn't really have that many connections. It's really interesting that she actually starts to, let's say, play dirty to get favors in, to get stuff in, to find basically both the twins, Aqua and Ruby. They start to work towards getting revenge for Ai, and the whole thing kind of works in a way that they show the parallel roads they go into, but at the same time, Aqua being, because they keep a bit of their original, let's say, mental state, mental fortitude, more or less. Ruby is still a bit of a kid, because Sarina didn't actually develop that much because she was so young, and Aqua finds out that she's looking for revenge and basically tries to shut her down, because at the moment that he notices that she's trying to play dirty to get into the revenge plot, he kind of tries to shut her down. And at one point later on, they actually have a really heavy moment where they both start to argue with each other, and I think that scene is pretty okay. They reveal to each other that Ruby is Sarina and Aqua is Goro, and so they build up this. It kind of is really cathartic in that way that a whole lot of weight is lifted from the characters. They kind of do the breakdown and become really close to each other, really closer to each other in that moment, and the whole thing kind of works out so well. And in that sense, right, a whole lot of people theorize that they would go into the Yosuga no Ruby meme. If you don't know, and this is me explaining how old as meme, but let's just get on to it. Yosuga no Sora is infamous for being, I think, first a light novel, then a manga, then an anime, that basically cutting a whole lot of stuff from the middle. It ends up with the main character Haru sleeping with his sister Sora, again, his sister, and it became kind of famous, or infamous again, because of that. It is one of the symbols of the Winces meme, and so the whole thing kind of went into that direction, so much so that after this chapter, Yosuga no Ruby was a meme that someone created and spread around. I mean, it is something, but easy to say. It was a theory, and in some instances you could say that would be a better, more fulfilling ending, but at the same time, I don't think Akasa Kawaka would do this, just because I don't think he would like to enter on that kind of gray area, especially because this manga is already so loaded with critiques about the whole show business entertainment industry in Japan. I think you could extrapolate it to worldwide, but I think his focus mainly is Japan, and in this way I don't think he would like to enter in that gray area about siblings, because it would like take the focus away from the critique that he was trying to write in the story. So I think that in a way you could say that it's a cop-out. If they didn't really go so hard on the critique, I think they could have done it, but at the same time, I don't know. The thing is, right, so we have this really heartwarming moment where basically Goro and Sarina reunite as Goro and Sarina, so much so that you see that the cute moments that they have together as brother and sister, and it's kind of heartwarming in that way. It is a nice respite considering everything. Because at this point in the story, and this is a thing, right? At this point in the story, we have a clear target. And for what's worth, Aqua has given his all as his objective, or like, let's say, one of the conditions to completing his objective is that he lives for revenge, and he wants Ruby or Sarina to have a normal life. His whole objective is to take away the weight that she has on Ai's death and everything that he considers that she should not have to deal with, because she has already been locked up in a hospital room for so many years, and now that she's out and actually living a normal life as a girl, a 16-year-old girl that she is, living her dream as an idol. The moment that she has it, he doesn't want it spoiled by revenge, and how much he has to get her hands dirty. And this, in a way, gives so much credence and so much credit to Aqua or Goro in that notion, because he is, I don't want to say that he is the main character of a shonen manga, but he's in such a difficult path. It is such a hard quest to complete that you have to root for the guy. At this point, when everything is revealed and we see how much Aqua is trying his best to get now not only his sister but also Sarina, someone he knows suffered through her past whole life. Oh my god, like, she lived most of her life in a hospital bed and passed away on it. Like, he knows how much she suffered from looking outside and never like grasping a normal piece of actual human life. And now that she has everything and can actually get a normal life, she cannot do it. It is such a, oh my god, it's so strong, you know, so strong when you think about it. And the whole thing, oh my god, I'm getting all over the place here. From this point forward, the whole thing kind of works on a way, because at this point in time when there is the revelation, they are already working on the movie that is the revenge against their father, the one that killed Ai. Not the one that killed really, but the one that instigated the killing of Ai. And from this point forward, the whole thing kind of works in a really interesting way. And I think, and this is the part where I need to actually take a moment to say that Mango Sensei really, if someone questioned her talent and the way that they could actually stitch art from one person to the story of another, I think that is so beautiful, because the next few chapters are them recording the movie, and in that they tell the story of everything that Aqua has investigated for the past few months to write that script. And the whole thing is so well done. Sometimes you don't know if it's a flashback. In reading the manga, I think it was really nice that you don't know if it's a flashback or them recording the movie, because you don't know if that's a creation or if that's something that actually happened. And it feels really nice, because at the same time they still get that amount of like really nice development. And I think in a way they took Akasaka took this part of the recording of the movie, of understanding, trying to bring out what was Ai's mental state and her whole story and what she was thinking. It is the moment that he takes to try to develop Ruby as a character. because at this point, until this point, Ruby had not been the limelight for the series, for anything. She had the moment that she tried to enter in the revenge plotline, revenge plot, let's say the revenge path, but when that was shut down, she didn't appear until a whole lot of chapters later. The whole thing kind of focused only on Aqua, Akane, and Kana to some extent. It didn't really bring Ruby to this point, and this is the point where Ruby gets this much of a really fast development for no apparent reason. I mean, it has a reason, and they really explain it well, but at the same time, it feels really short to actually give some kind of connection to her, because in a way, we see that Ruby gets to understand Ai through acting as her in the movie, but at the same time, it didn't validate us audience with Ruby. It just reinforces us with Ai, because we don't see Ruby doing that stuff. We see Ai doing it. And even though we know that Ruby is getting to understand Ai in a deeper level like us, it kind of bridges and becomes only about Ai and not Ruby. And that's one of the things, right? One of the main things is that the ending is rushed. The most, if not all of the mangas I always reviewed on this show, the ending is always rushed. Yes, the ending is always rushed. But I'll get to that a bit later, but let's just keep on with the explanation. So, and in recording the movie and talking again about Mango Sensei, some of the scenes are really strong, bro. Really strong. There is this one scene that I don't know if the style, I don't know if it's the characters. The characters are not, because it's only side characters at that point. And I don't know if it's the theming, because the theme of that specific scene is really, really strong. But so there is this one girl, right, Shiranui Frio, that she's a known actress, and she's acting as one of the side characters for the movie to then explain why Aqua has a half-brother, and the whole thing kind of works out from there. When she's acting, her connection to Aqua's father, bro, that scene where she's on top of him, it is that face, you know, it's burned into my brain like, holy shit, that is strong, that is strong. It's not really that big of a frame, let's say, in the manga, but it just got me like, oh my god, this is strong as hell. And the whole thing kind of goes from there. The whole arc on them recording this movie is one thing, and then when he confronts his father with the last phrase on the DVD, it feels cathartic. It feels like that's the end of the story. And this is where we get to the problem. So now this is the time that I will add all my opinions. So, because also just quick a bit, I want to actually do a little video about this to then explain this better to people that are not focused enough to listen to a podcast, but still, the thing is, right, so in many ways, I think Oshinoko works on basically 3 levels. So there is Ai, that is one level. There is Aqua and Ruby, there's the second level, and then there is the third level, the critique on the entertainment world. So the thing about this whole thing is, this whole story depends on one thing only. It is understanding Ai, because Ai is the catalyst of everything that's wrong with the entertainment industry. I think that becomes more apparent as the story goes on and more of the story is revealed, because everyone that gets involved with Ai has a connection to something bad that happens in the entertainment industry, and everything that happens is because of Ai's death. Aqua is moved by Ai's death. Ruby, if she wants or not, is moved by Ai's death. Everyone in the whole production agency is involved because of Ai's death, and everyone that gets involved with them end up getting involved with Ai because of the movie and because of the mystery around why I died, in the case specifically of Akane. And the whole thing kind of goes from there to the point that we get, from the point that we see their father going to turn himself in, I think there is a disconnect because they start to bring up a lot of themes on the same span of pages. Let's say in the same chapter you see a whole lot of stuff happening and all these flashes of stuff, so much so that there is this one part that really got to me, that we have like one part of them, I think, recording finishing up the movie. They do something wholesome, and then there's this exchange between Aqua and Akane about the fact that there's not only Aqua's father to be blamed for the killing of Ai, but also the one that actually did it, and someone else who was connected to him to give him information. And then we go back to a side character that was introduced way too late to actually be of any weight to the story, and she has such a mental breakdown on her 4-page presence in that one chapter that really just gives out the response to the mystery, let's say. And the whole they talk about her name, they say her name after the exchange and so on and so forth, but at the same time they put this plot device way too late to then justify why Aqua's father will not turn himself in and will try to then murder Ruby. And the whole thing they try to introduce this with an exchange on, I think, on max 4 pages. Like, come on, man, what the fuck? You came this far to then do this? And when it comes, and this is talk strictly about the ending, so again, if you have not read the last few chapters on this thing, go do that now. And when push comes to shove and they actually do try to kill Ruby, you make Aqua make that kind of sacrifice? It was an exchange on 4 pages. Like, come on, what is this rushing? You have been rushing for the last 10 chapters. A critique of the entertainment industry, because why not? We have not still hammered that in. We have a really wholesome moment that would be really nice if this thing have already ended. And everything's going well. Ruby has overcome everything. She has been cured of both the revenge plot and conflict that she had with Kana. She has resolved to be an idol, to bring people love, happiness, to actually be a wholesome person, not get involved with everything that's dirty. She wants to actually do good for the world, and she was already cured. She was pristine in that moment. She was carrying the stars of love on her eyes, and then you do that to then she regresses everything. Like, come on. And this is the hardest part about all this, right? This is the hardest part, because you see the way that they introduce this ending, I think it's a bit of bait, and at the same time it's logical. And in that way, I don't think that this ending is bad because it's a bad ending, but I think this ending is bad because it's the logical conclusion to a thing that you didn't really introduce well. Because at the end of the day, if you ended when Hikaru was trying to turn himself in, then we could have all those wholesome moments, all those comedic relief, everything would be alright, because everyone would be on the headspace, like, yeah, we are done, everything ended well, the guy turned himself in, they killed him in a social, public way, and he turned himself in because he saw the wrongs of his ways. That would be a less conflictive ending. I understand, and I really think that people don't change in that way, like that, because it would be like one exchange between Aqua and him that changed his whole view of the whole story, because till that point, we already saw that he kills people out of nowhere for no real reason, and already instigated someone to kill the mother of his children, and the whole thing it makes sense. The problem that I have is that the ending, I think it's really rushed, really badly explained, but at the same time, it is logical. when you stop, get your emotions down, and just think about everything that happens. The moment that Aqua recognizes that he needs to kill his father and in turn feign his murder or simulate his murder, the whole thing kind of clicks, right? So you know from that point that his stars, Hikaru's stars on his eyes are still black. They still hold the bad intentions and he won't change. Because at this point he will never change. If he's left untouched and if he's left to his own, he will hunt down Ruby. And in that sense, Aqua and Goro can't leave that going. Because again, Aqua has already resolved himself to protect first Ruby and now Sarina as much as he can. He wants her to live a normal life. And in trying to do so, the only logical conclusion is kill him and publicly pronounce him as a murderer. Not because of because at that point the movie wasn't out. Not because of many other people that later on we know that are investigated for it, but of his own murder. Aqua made the conscious decision of saving his sister, saving his patient, and avenging Ai by killing him, Hikaru, and himself. And that really is a really genius, if I may say so myself, ending. But I think the method to get there was not great. And this is a thing that I cannot really explain here because I can't go page by page, but easy to say, the last 10 chapters of this thing are a mess. And you see that they go from point to point, level to level, because there is something about something about the entertainment industry, something wholesome, some really nice slice of life moment, some interaction between Aqua and Ruby that is really cute, something about Akane and Kana squabbling but still being kind of rivals / friends, something that resolves character arc. We have one specific chapter where we have Miyako resolving her stuff. We have one specific chapter where Micho resolves her stuff. And a lot of all the characters that we know from that point, they all get these happy endings, these conclusions, these closures for themselves. And the moment that they want to introduce your main character, the closure for the whole story, I think that it was botched, because if you extended and this is a thing, I will talk more about this a bit later, if you extended a bit more, I would not say one whole volume, but it would end up being one whole volume. If you could extend a bit more, just to bring up this whole thing about the logical conclusion, about actually if you leave Hikaru out and about, he will hunt down Ruby and end everything on her dreams. If you actually if you had done that, then I think people would understand why the ending is like that. Because we go back to the beginning. This is a revenge story. This whole thing started with someone killing someone and ended with someone killing someone. Both of them got killed by the end, and that's the thing, right? So the guy who killed Ai killed himself, and so did the guy who killed Hikaru. And that's the story, really. From that point on, we have a whole closure on everyone, and the two things that really break my heart in watching it. Really, it was even harder than seeing Aqua throwing himself with Hikaru on that moment. The one thing that really broke my heart, besides that, was first the scene where Kana is at the funeral. Bro, that scene, it breaks me. Because, and this is the redeeming fact, right? The thing that I talked before. Kana, I don't like her as a character, really. I think she's a way too much for her own good. But in that moment when she slaps Aqua at the funeral and she starts screaming and crying, bro, that scene hits hard, hits really hard. It felt like me, that you basically project the audience in that moment, because as we know as audience, that right there is us, because he showed so much of the cute shit that could have happened, the happy life that they could have lived, everyone. He would end up with Kana, they would marry, have kids and so on and so forth, they would live happily. Aqua could have gone to Ruby's concerts and do stuff and random sibling cute stuff like they already showed. And in that moment that Kana is there crying her heart out, asking him to come back, that's us. And that's the thing that breaks my heart, right? That it had to end that way. And even more to that, and the thing that this is the thing that really grinds my gears about this whole thing. When Ruby gets into the depression phase about this whole thing, when she comes back, she doesn't have the loving eyes anymore. She doesn't have the love stars anymore. She has the same stars that I had, that was the lies. And that's the thing that really pisses me off, because you resolved Ruby. She had her closure. That was perfect. She was in that moment pristine. Her whole arc has come and gone. To her, the story would be there. The whole story, her whole hero arc about entering an adventure, getting involved, going through ups and downs, and then changing by the end. Her happy ending had already gone through, and then with Aqua gone, she has not only regressed, but she became I again. Like, bro, this whole thing. So, kind of emotional. And I don't want people to think that I'm acting up, but I get really involved with this kind of stuff. But let's just try to finish this up, because already has been 1 hour. And this is the context that I want to bring up with talking about this whole thing about the ending being rushed and showing way too much stuff. The critique on the entertainment industry in Japan, I can't say anything about it. I'm the farthest person from it that you could ever think about. That critique is not on me to do anything. It's on them, let's say, the guys on the industry. And this is a thing that I will not touch or discuss, really. I think that, again, you could extrapolate many of the problems there to worldwide. I think that without naming names, I think that we already have not only recordings, but cases that show cases of those wrongdoings in the entertainment industry as of late. I think that one that came out 2024 is especially prevalent when you think about it and talk about this kind of stuff. But that's not the main thing here. I think 2 days, maybe one, I don't know, the time zones are weird. After the ending came out, Akasaka Aka came out on an interview to Shueisha, so his publisher, about how was the serialization of Oshinoko. And the whole thing is in Japanese, but you can translate it, so okay. One of the main points, and this is a thing about mangakas and stuff, so much so that I think one of the mangakas that appear in the play arc is the self-insert of him, but I'm not getting to that right now. He said that he was not living a normal human life, that he was overworking himself in order to present this kind of story. And not to say that, only drawing is easy and so on. And I will not say that. I could never say something like that, because I understand the struggle that is writing something. But the thing, right? So the whole thing is, I don't know if there was a pressure to release the ending. I don't know if he set that line for himself, or 8 volumes, the 15 volumes, I don't know if it was a requirement by Shueisha, I don't know. But I wish that he could have spread more of his time. He could have developed everything. Because, again, and this is a thing on me, and I think that it would have helped lot if they could have actually developed the why Aqua chose to do what he did. I think it would have been a better ending. I think that more people would accept it. Me, and this is the distant opinion that I want to end this whole thing with. I don't like this ending, but at the same time, I don't think it's wrong. And I don't think that this ending is as bad as people make it out to be. This ending is not great, but it's not that bad. It is one ending of all time. And that's the whole thing about Oshinoko. It started great. The anime is still to come out, the 3rd season. I really hope people don't get spoiled by this, but let's see how things go. And with that said, thank you guys for listening. Please share, please follow, please like, depending on the platform you're in. And I hope you stick around for next time. Bye.